Senkyo, which has recently been discovered. It is said that the immortality granting elixir of life can be found on that land. The shogun sent a search party to find the elixir, but one evening a boat returned full of flowers. But when further examined, there is a body among the flowers. The shogun learns about this, so he orders his men to gather criminals, seeing them as expendable, to send them to the island to bring back the elixir of life and pardon them if they are successful. Sagari reveals she is there to look for potential candidates, seeing Gabimaru as a good fit. She tells Gabimaru his wife is waiting for him in the village, and the only way for him to reunite with her is to join the expedition. The Lord still wants Gabimaru dead, ordering his men to attack, but Gabimaru uses his ninjutsu, unleashing fire from his body, allowing him to defeat all the guards in the room. The Lord falls to his knees as Gabimaru agrees to join the expedition, determined to make it back alive. In a flashback, Sagiri witnesses her father performing an execution, which was so perfectly carried out that the man didn't even realize he'd been beheaded. Sagiri made it her goal to replicate his move, and when it came time for her to perform executions, she managed to do it well, but she imagines the people she killed haunting her. A man named Aizen observes that there is doubt and fear in her swordsmanship, which makes people die painful deaths. He tells Sagiri to look at the reflection on her sword, as he states that the truth is reflected in the blade. Back in the present, Sagiri puts a blindfold on Gabimaru and she makes him join the other criminals as they are informed the shogun is sitting before them. They are all given orders to travel to Shinsenkyo and return with the elixir of life, saying the successful criminal will be pardoned. This makes the atmosphere change as the criminals realize they can earn their freedom. The speaker describes the island, but the criminals interrupt him, saying it sounds like a fairy tale. The criminals are ordered to remove their masks and they see a man with flowers sprouting out of his body. We learn that the man returned alive from the expedition, but he had lumps all over his body and they started blooming. The criminals begin to have doubts, not wanting to risk their lives in the expedition, but an official reminds them they have all been sentenced to death, so going to the island is considered a generous offer. A criminal named Nurugai notices that they don't know anything about the island, wondering if the elixir is even there. An official tells them they are free to drop out, so one of the men tries to leave, but he is immediately executed. The official reveals that they will have the Yamada clan serve as monitors while on the island, so if they try anything funny, they will be killed on the spot. He warns the criminals not to try anything, and he adds that if their monitors die for whatever reason, they will be executed. The shogun whispers something to an official's ear, and the official tells them that their numbers need to be reduced before going to the island because they don't have the resources to accommodate all of them. The criminals are confused, but a man named Chobe calls them idiots as he chokes another criminal to death. He points out that the officials are doing nothing, so he concludes that the officials want them to kill each other. The official confirms this, so they start killing each other as the shogun watches on with excitement, but the official thinks this is just pointless violence. The shogun asks about the criminals with the most exceptional skills, and the official tells him about them, saying the most notable among them is Gabimaru. They observe Gabimaru, but he doesn't appear to be moving, as no one is even attacking him. Aizen notices how the violence is making Sagiri overwhelmed, telling her it will be even more brutal on the island. So he questions her capabilities, thinking she isn't suited for the job. Aizen tells her she should just live quietly in her mansion, and Sagiri tells him that she would have if she could. In a flashback, we see Sagiri running away from some bullies as they make fun of her family for making a living through people's deaths. One day, she picks up a sword and she sees the reflection on the sword, allowing her to see the spirits haunting it. Back in the present, some of the criminals think about escaping, so they charge at Sagiri, seeing her as an easy target. Aizen wonders if she can handle them, but Sagiri has accepted her fate as an executioner and she easily takes them all out. But she starts to feel haunted by her victims again. But the spirits disappear as Gabimaru says that killing people is never okay. Gabimaru asks if there is another way to choose who's going on the expedition, because not everyone wants to kill people. An official threatens him, telling him to watch his tongue as he orders some criminals to attack him. The man lifts a stone and throws it at him, but Gabimaru easily dodges it. Gabimaru wants to talk it out, but the criminal refuses, leaving him with no choice but to kill them, because he needs to survive. He approaches the man lousily, saying he's about to be burdened as he starts taking out the other criminals with such brutality, biting one of the criminals' throat out. Even the shogun is unsettled. Sagiri looks at his reflection through her sword, and she sees countless souls around him, but they don't seem to disturb him. This makes Sagiri realize that what she needs is not to get rid of her fear and doubt, but the strength to take on the burdens of the lives she took. The officials stop the massacre, telling the remaining criminals they will be joining the expedition. And we learn that the 10 criminals who will be joining the expedition are the same criminals who have exceptional skills. They all boarded the ship and we see the island. As they slowly arrive, Gabimaru remembers when the village chief was pierced by multiple weapons, but he didn't fall, proving immortality, and it was apparently due to a medicine he acquired from a land across the sea. They arrived at Shinsenkyo, where Gabimaru tells Sagiri that the elixir of life is real, but he isn't sure if they will find it on this island. They explore the island as Sagiri comments on how beautiful the place is, but Gabimaru finds it creepy, saying they don't know what's out there. He breaks his restraints, and Sagiri tells him he's not allowed to do that, but Gabimaru brushes it off, explaining how they only have a strange drawing as a clue, and their food is only good for 3 days. However, Sagiri threatens to kill him, demanding he binds his hands as she begins to tie his hands. A giant steel ball suddenly comes hurtling toward Gabimaru, blowing him away. The ball returns to a criminal named Cayenne, who thinks he's finally gotten rid of his target. But Gabimaru gets back up, cracking his neck, lousily admitting that it got dislocated. Sugiri explains Cayenne is a warrior monk who steals the weapons of those he has defeated. Gabimaru points out that Cayenne's hands aren't restrained, prompting Sugiri to ask Cayenne's executioner, Kisho, about this. Kisho, however, says they can tie their hands on the way back, telling Sugiri she's the lowest ranked executioner because she's too rigid. Cayenne, now annoyed, displays his other weapons, wanting to test them on Gabimaru. Gabimaru, however, doesn't want to waste time fighting he knows the others will get ahead of them. Cayenne, however, argues that since they have no leads, it's better to take out the other criminals and then take his time looking for the elixir. Gabimaru realizes he has no choice but to fight. Cayenne charges at him, but Sugiri insists he binds his hands. Gabimaru complies, reluctantly tying his hands as Cayenne smashes his head. The mace shatters, but Cayenne brings out other weapons to attack. Gabimaru, while tying his hands, endures the blows, breaking Cayenne's weapons. Cayenne thrusts his spirit weapon at Gabimaru, who, having just finished tying his hands, shatters the spear, launching Cayenne into the air. As Cayenne's weapons fall toward Gabimaru, he kicks one at Cayenne, stabbing him in the chest. Sugiri thinks Gabimaru won with a single attack, but Cayenne gets back up, saying they're just getting started. He is eventually defeated again by Gabimaru, who uses his own weapons against him. Gabimaru wants to continue their quest as Kisho beheads Cayenne and heads back to the ship. Gabimaru wonders if Kisho wants to fight, but Kisho says he is just doing his job and doesn't take sides. He even considers himself lucky for getting out so quickly. He reminds Sugiri she will be spending time with a dangerous criminal. Kisho tells them about how the other criminals are breaking the rules and predicts they will continue to kill each other until only one remains. We see Aizen tying their boat to a tree when a criminal named Rokurona suddenly attacks them, hungry. He tries to defend himself, but his sword shatters, and he ends up being eaten by Rokurona. Some of the other criminals meet similar ends. Kisho explains more will be added since they are expendable, revealing they are recruiting people from Gabimaru's village as well as the Amada clan. He leaves, warning Sugiri not to let her guard down. She starts to wonder about Gabimaru's true character. At that moment, Gabimaru suddenly attacks Sugiri, but she manages to push him back. Gabimaru recalls when the chief killed his parents it was because they wanted to leave the village. The chief taught Gabimaru that emotions make a person weak, and he won't be able to protect anything unless he is strong. They exchange blows as Gabimaru thinks about this. Sugiri informs him that killing her is against the rules, but Gabimaru says he needs to find the elixir before the other shinobi from his village arrive. Seeing her as a hindrance, he continues to attack. Sugiri thinks he should be executed immediately, but she finds herself hesitating. We learn that Gabimaru has the same problem. He doesn't know why he can't bring himself to kill her. Gabimaru remembers how his wife told him to follow his emotions, which got in the way during his missions. Gabimaru sees an opening but stops just before delivering the finishing blow. He gets pushed back, thinking this is a weakness, thinking he won't be able to survive. He continues his assault, thinking about the chief's advice, making him hollow again. He breaks Sugiri's sword, and he is about to cut her down when she uses her sheath to defend herself. Gabimaru eventually comes out on top, ready to deal the finishing blow, but he struggles to finish her off, admitting he still has emotions left. He starts crying, thinking he had become weak. Sugiri comforts him. It's not weakness, but the seed of strength, believing not fleeing from emotions is strength. She decides to overlook his behavior, wanting to see him face his emotions and reclaim his life. She tells him he is no longer his old self. Meanwhile, a criminal named Tamaya realizes his hand has been stung by a butterfly, recalling what happened to someone who returned from an expedition. He quickly slices his hand off and kills the insect. His executioner Fuchi is confused by this, but Tamaya shows him the human-faced butterfly, saying it's not from their world. Suddenly, Tamiya's severed hand transforms into flowers, and more creatures appear around them, including a giant abomination. Meanwhile, Gabimaru and Sugiri are also surrounded, with a fish monster standing before them. Gabimaru tells Sugiri to stand back, preparing to take it on. In a flashback, we learn that Tamiya was an extremely skilled swordsman. One day, he has a drink with his lord but hears a comment that makes him upset, so he ends up destroying the mansion's gate and killing his lord. An entire clan hunts him down, leading to his arrest. We see Tamiya with Fuchi as they arrive on the island. Tamiya notices how his executioner has tools for deception. Fuchi explains that the Yamada clan also dissects bodies to help produce effective medicines. The fish creature uses his arms to attack Gabimaru, but he easily evades it and kicks the monster's head. However, the creature grabs onto his foot, slamming him against the ground. Gabimaru quickly recovers as he remembers the shinobi rule, not to fight an unknown enemy. He thinks about retreating, but the creature suddenly restrains him, smashing his body against the trees before throwing him away. Sagiri is surprised he is actually injured, and they think they should run away. Soon, giants approach from all directions. To survive, Gabimaru goes berserk, using his ninjutsu to destroy a giant's head. He goes on to butcher the other giants while Sagiri watches in awe, thinking about how dangerous the job is. A giant suddenly attacks her from behind, but she evades. Centipede monsters grab onto her, restricting her movement. As the giant prepares to strike, Gabimaru cuts the giant's arm, allowing him to save Sagiri. This snaps him out of his berserk state. The fish monster is about to attack them, but the executioner named Genji arrives and takes out the creature. A ninja named Yuzuri joins them, impressed by Gabimaru's abilities. Gabimaru questions her motives as she approaches, trying to seduce him into working with her, but he ends up restraining her, saying her seduction won't work on him. Yuzuri claims she just wanted to try it out, but she is serious about working together. Gabimaru wonders why she has two executioners with her, and Genji explains how he was assigned to another criminal who was killed by Yuzuri. Because of this, he concluded that one executioner may not be enough to control her, so he decided to join. However, Gabimaru finds the explanation weird. They conclude he must have been seduced. The other executioner introduces himself as Santa. Yuzuri tells them about the creatures in the area, saying finding the elixir is important, but they can't charge ahead without a plan. Sagiri tells them there's no problem with working together. Yuzuri hugs onto Gabimaru, but he restrains her, saying he can't trust her. She uses her legs to bring him closer, saying he doesn't need to trust her because they will eventually betray each other. Only one of them will be pardoned. She suggests they just use each other for now. Gabimaru backs off, wondering how she can help him. Yuzuri reveals she has plenty of information, telling them the real danger on the island is the human-faced butterfly, which has hallucinogens and poison. She explains she got the information by testing the bugs out on another criminal, whom she ended up killing. Sagiri watches them as they interact, thinking about what she has done since arriving on the island. But she suddenly collapses. In a flashback, we see a man named Toma who is about to become an executioner. Aizen tells him he should take the final step by killing a criminal. Thinking about which execution would be suitable, Toma says he has a request and goes to his brother Chobe, telling him he knows how to make the magistrate's men stop pursuing them. Back in the present, the brothers are surprised to see three giant creatures standing before them. Immediately they attack, and Tona reveals that his brother's strength is to quickly understand situations. We learn that the brothers lived in poverty after their parents died, and they were taken by bandits. While with the bandits, Chobe somehow controlled the situation and eventually became the bandit king. He cuts down a giant, but his knife breaks, so he runs away with Toma. But a giant grabs onto Toma's hair. As Chobe returns with an axe, he gets hit in the face by a staff. The monster tells them that murder is a sin. The other creatures start talking to them, making Toma believe they're in hell. But Chobe starts cutting through the creatures, eventually managing to defeat all of them. Chobe thinks that the elixir must be real since there are monsters protecting it, so he decides to take out everyone on the island and seize the elixir for himself. Sagiri regains consciousness, and Genji tells them they're safe in a cavern. He informs Sagiri she was poisoned by the butterfly's scales, but she immediately gets back up, wanting to monitor Gabimaru. Later that day, Genji confronts Sagiri, urging her to return to the mainland, believing she lacks the strength to endure the island's dangers. However, Senna points out that leaving isn't straightforward. Few who attempt to leave the island ever make it back. Meanwhile, the story shifts to Tenza, the executioner, who is trying to escape the island with Nurugai. They spot a ship and head toward it, but upon arrival, they find it destroyed, surrounded by wreckage. Tenza deduces that these ships were likely attempts to flee the island, all ending in failure. Suddenly, they notice creatures moving among the debris. Tenza draws his sword, preparing for an attack, and a sea monster emerges, forcing them to abandon their boat. They scramble onto a nearby shipwreck, only to face more tentacles. Tenza cuts through them while searching for a functional vessel. Amid the chaos, Nurugai is overcome with guilt, recalling how she once guided samurai to her village, leading to its destruction. Though the men slaughtered everyone, they spared her, intending to use her to locate other villages. While imprisoned, Tenza found her, and, recognizing her innocence, presented her with the chance for a pardon. Back in the present, they encounter Kisho, whose body grotesquely transforms into flowers. Tenza tries to reason with him, but a tentacle swiftly slices Kisho in half. The sight of Kisho's corpse reminds Nurugai of her late grandfather, and she collapses in despair, urging Tenza to leave her behind, blaming herself for her village's fate. Tenza, however, stands by her, asking if she truly wishes to die. Remarking that she is stronger than him in ways he cannot articulate, he encourages her to rely on experience to unlock her full potential. The next morning, Sagiri informs Genji that she will not leave the island. Frustrated, Genji draws his sword, attempting to intimidate her, but she effortlessly disarms him. Genji retrieves his weapon and reprimands her, but their confrontation is interrupted by the sudden appearance of Rokuroda, who violently hurls Genji aside. The narrative shifts to Rokuroda's backstory. As a child, he possessed an insatiable appetite and enjoyed manipulating objects with his hands. However, his appetite drove him into a frenzy, culminating in him devouring everyone in his village. I know you hear it a lot, but subscribing really helps us move forward. But if you didn't like the video, double click on the thumbs down button just to be sure. Rokuroda sets his sights on Sagiri, but Gabimaru intervenes, delivering a powerful kick. Yet, Rokuroda recovers immediately, unfazed. Gabimaru recognizes the danger, noting that his kick had no effect. Drawing on his training, he begins analyzing Rokuroda's abilities. Rokuroda uproots a tree and hurls it at Gabimaru, who narrowly dodges the attack. Gabimaru quickly realizes that Rokuroda's strength surpasses his own and calls for Yuzuriha's assistance. She declines, reminding him that her role is purely informational, not combative, as she cheers him on from the sidelines. Rokuroda's wild swings keep Gabimaru on the defensive. Fearing that a single hit could kill him, Gabimaru resorts to throwing rocks, but they prove ineffective. Determined, he uses his ninjutsu to harden his sash into steel, yet even this strategy fails. Exhausted and running out of options, Gabimaru contemplates his next move. Meanwhile, Sagiri tends to Genji's wounds, but he insists she stop, knowing he won't survive. He urges her to flee, but Sagiri refuses, urging him not to give up. Touched by her determination, Genji accepts her resolve and hands her his sword, explaining that a warrior's sword is their soul. He entrusts her with the task of defeating Rokuroda, recognizing her as one of them. Gabimaru considers using his fire-based ninjutsu, but he knows close combat with Rokuroda is too risky. Before he can act, one of Rokuroda's fingers is severed. Sagiri has joined the battle. Gabimaru is impressed by her timing and devises a plan. They need to decapitate Rokuroda. However, due to his immense height, Sagiri is tasked with targeting his legs. Gabimaru distracts Rokuroda, allowing Sagiri to strike his leg, but the attack proves futile. Sagiri falters and Rokuroda retaliates, forcing her to reassess her strategy. Realizing her mistake in being overly aggressive, she calms herself and regains focus. As Rokuroda prepares another devastating strike, Gabimaru narrowly evades but injures his leg in the process. Sagiri attempts to sever Rokuroda's arm, but the attack fails. She observes that his body has gaps between its hardened bonds and concludes that a precise strike to these weak points is essential. However, to exploit this, Rokuroda must be hunched over. Suddenly, Rokuroda lets out a deafening scream, overwhelming their senses. He capitalizes on their disorientation, slamming Gabimaru into the ground. Though gravely injured, Gabimaru survives, coughing up blood as Rokuroda prepares to deliver a fatal blow. At the crucial moment, Sagiri steps in and enters a serene state of mind, easily deflecting the attack. This surprises everyone. During the battle, Senna reveals that Sagiri is the lowest ranked executioner because, as a woman, she is considered unsuitable to lead their clan. However, in terms of pure skill, it's clear that Sagiri surpasses most of her peers. As Rokuroya loses his footing, Sagiri moves in to finish him off, but he manages to jump away. Gabimaru quickly formulates a plan and uses his fire ninjutsu to hurl flaming projectiles, setting everything around them ablaze. Realizing Gabimaru intends to suffocate Rokuroya with the smoke, Yuzuri flees the area. The plan works as Rokuroya collapses to his knees, struggling to breathe. Sagiri moves in for the final blow, but as Rokuroya attempts a last-ditch attack, Gabimaru forces his hand to the ground, allowing Sagiri to execute him. Before his death, the look in Rokuroya's eyes gives Sagiri pause as Shay realizes he lived a misunderstood life, unaware of his own strength. Tragically, his attempts to play often led to accidental deaths. Gabimaru, concerned that the fire might attract monsters, urges the group to leave. They retreat from the area, leaving behind Genji's remains. Hiding in the shadows, they watch as giants arrive at the scene. Gabimaru suggests heading toward the direction from which the monsters came, believing it could lead to the elixir of life. They catch up to Yuzuriha and Senta, and the group is astonished to discover a village on the island. Meanwhile, deeper in the forest, two brothers stumble upon two beings in an intimate moment. Chobe wonders if they are monsters, and one of the beings, a yellow figure named Jufa, becomes enraged at them for interrupting. Gabimaru, wary of the island's residents, spots a girl spying on them. He chases after her, managing to catch up and remove her hood. To his shock, she is a child. Suddenly, a tree monster attacks Gabimaru, and the girl escapes. Gabimaru evades the attack and kicks the creature away as Sagiri and their companions handle the threat. Yuzuriha removes Senta's glasses, saying she doesn't want him to see her techniques, and drinks from a cup, causing a strange liquid to pour from her body. Gabimaru continues his pursuit of the girl, eventually grabbing her hand. However, the child shocks him by throwing him to the ground with unexpected strength. Sagiri approaches the girl, calmly explaining that they only want to talk. The girl stops momentarily, allowing Sagiri to catch up, but then suddenly tries to punch her. Gabimaru intervenes, blocking the attack and noting that the girl's strength is on another level. The impact forces him to take a few steps back. In desperation, Gabimaru grabs vines and binds the girl, suspending her mid-air. When the girl begins to cry, they release her, and Sagiri consoles her. Yuzuriha joins them, boasting about her efforts in defeating the creature. As they discuss their next move, the tree creature speaks, demanding the return of the girl and offering to lead them to the village to share information about the elixir of life. Despite Yuzuriha's distrust, the mention of a bath in the village convinces her otherwise. The creature guides them to a ghostly village, explaining that it wasn't like this 1,000 years ago. It leads them to his home, where Yuzuriha bathes with Sagiri while the men are offered food. Suspicious, Gabimaru questions the creature about the island and the elixir. The creature reveals the island's name is Kotaku, where gods reside. It confirms the elixir's existence, recounting the legend of Tan. It draws 3 circles on the ground, explaining that they are in the second circle, and the elixir is located at the center, known as Horai. To further prove its story, the creature mentions the Tensen beautiful and immortal beings. Meanwhile, Chobe battles Jufa, cutting him in half. However, Jufa regenerates, good as new. The creature explains that the Tensen are on another level entirely and claims they will kill anyone who dares approach. The brothers, defeated, are thrown into a pit filled with humans transformed into flowers. Chobe regains consciousness as Toma helps him escape. The tree reveals that these flower-like beings are the source of Tan and experience eternal bliss. It introduces itself as Hako and the girl as Mei, explaining that they have lived on the island for centuries. Later, Gabimaru and Sagiri visit the bathhouse and find Mei there. Initially, she cries, but Gabimaru reassures her, saying communal bathing is normal in his village. Sagiri notices a large scar on Mei's body, and Gabimaru recalls his wife's words about the importance of rest. He comforts Mei, telling her not to be ashamed of her scars, as the most beautiful woman he knows has one as well. Sagiri is surprised by his words. As they leave, Gabimaru reflects on his priorities, realizing he cannot afford distractions. And that's where this chapter leaves off. That's the entire recap of Hell's Paradise episode 1 to 7. If you like our videos, please subscribe to stay tuned for part 2.
お初にお目にかかる。僕はアイゼン。アイゼン宗介。